Welcome to Mommispace, the podcast for moms of all stages. My name is Aubrey Coots, and this podcast was created to give moms a voice to share their experiences and to share that there's not just one way to be a mom. This is a place where you can learn to love the woman inside the mother. Welcome back to Mommispace. This is Aubrey Coots, and today I am interviewing my friend Gill. And we are friends through our church. We go to the same church, and we met through Redeemer about 4 years ago. But with our theme this month of education and back to school and talking about different schooling options for our kids, I wanted to interview her to talk about why she has chosen private school currently for her kids. And she shared with me that she has some different education options that they've used in the past and different things they want to do down the road. So I'm really excited to talk to her today. So Jen, welcome to Mommispace.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So in getting started, I'd love if you could first tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and the story of your journey into motherhood.
Okay, well, my name is Jen, and my husband John and I have 3 boys. They are ages 6, 9, and 12, so 1st grade, 4th grade, and 7th grade. John and I met in college when we were going to college in San Diego. We met freshman year, we got together senior year, and that's a whole nother podcast for how we got together. We even actually wrote a little booklet about our story. Yeah, some people at church have read it.
I want to read that.
I mean, he pretty much pursued me all throughout college. So yeah, but we got married. He is a professor at a local university, and I am a part-time office manager for a nonprofit here in town. And let me see my journey into motherhood.
Yeah.
So we actually lived in Kentucky when my first 2 were born. John and I got married between my 2nd and 3rd year of law school, and he had just finished seminary. And after we got married, I wanted to, of course, finish school, and then after that work for a couple years. But I also knew that John wanted to get his PhD, so we moved out to Kentucky for him to pursue that. We were married for 5 years before our first came along. I think we were waiting for the perfect time to have a baby, and as you all know, there's no perfect time. He was still in school, and I was working to help support us, and we just didn't feel like it was a good time. Well, our church out there in Kentucky, our pastor did a sermon series about family, and there was one sermon in particular. He talked about basically that children are a blessing, that there's no good time, because children are a blessing no matter what season of life you're in. And God used that to convict us and a lot of other families. There were a lot of babies that following summer.
Baby
seriously,
boom.
It was, I think, 9 or 10 womb babies.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Yeah. He accomplished what he wanted with that sermon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were married 5 years until he came along. And so even just that, having waited for 5 years, that's a long time. It was really hard going from 0 to 1 because we were pretty selfish. When you're working full time and you don't have kids, you go out whenever you want to, you stay up, and, you could go out to eat all the time. We just lived it up. And when you have a baby, I mean, your priorities and responsibilities shift so much. And so it was just really eye-opening. It was a very sanctifying experience. It still is. So that was our journey into parenthood, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. And so you had Ethan, and then what was the timeline for your next 2 boys?
They're all about 3 years apart.
Okay.
I think I would have wanted them closer in age, but you can't ever really plan that. And he was still in he finished seminary for his MDiv, master's, and then his PhD took 7 years.
Okay.
And so that was also a whole journey probably a whole nother podcast for that.
We have a lot of episodes to line up. Hear all these stories.
Yeah, so I would have wanted them closer in age, but didn't really work out.
Okay, so you have your 3 boys now.
Yes. And they're all, did I say their names? They're all named E. So Ethan, Ezra, and Elias.
Yes.
Or E1, E2, E3, as we like to call them.
Do you refer to them as E1, E2, E3 like at home?
Not verbally, but when I like label things, like I'll label their water bottles E1, E2, E3, or, so.
So they know.
Yeah, they know who they are.
Yeah, that's great. I loved hearing the backstory of just even hearing that sermon at church and how that kind of like convicted you and John and, made you really think through like, okay, there's not ever really a good time. But like you said, even biblically, children are a blessing from the Lord, and just being obedient in that and wanting to move forward and growing your family. That's super cool. And that's funny that like a bunch of families were all pregnant together. Yeah. And even what you said about, having 5 years with just the 2 of you and being kind of selfish in that. I've shared with like so many young married couples. I'm like, enjoy this season, because they're like, man, we can't wait to have kids. And I'm like, having kids is so fun and so rewarding and so exhausting. And you don't get to do, an 11 o'clock Taco Bell run like you used to, or...
That's foreign to me. We never thought, we can't wait to have kids because he was still in school.
Right.
And we knew how hard it would be. And even knowing mentally how hard it's going to be and when it actually happens, I mean, it was even harder than we thought it would be.
Yeah.
We never even had that thought.
Yeah.
There is a part of me, even though we enjoyed the 5 years of just us together, there's a part of me wishes we started earlier because we are a little bit older and we feel it. And so, I mean, our youngest is first grade, so it'll be quite a while till he goes off to college.
Yeah.
And we are actually in our young or early 40s now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. So with your boys, and I don't even think that I realized how big of a gap there was between them. I don't know. I think in my head, I just like group them all like closely in age. So you have 7th grade, 4th grade, and first grade. Yeah. So Ethan has obviously been in school for a while now that he's in 7th grade. So with your boys and even like before they started school, how did you and John decide what kind of schooling you wanted for your children? Like what has that process looked like for you guys?
So before we even thought about having kids, I just assumed that they would go to public school because John and I are products of public school. Even the law school I went to is public. And I think we had a good education. Our college was public. But then it wasn't until we moved to Kentucky and we met other homeschooling families. So, and I'm talking about people our age who were homeschooled. I always had this, the stereotypical, like girls are wearing long skirts and I don't know. But they were just the most well-rounded, intelligent people. They were easy to get along with and broke a lot of my stereotypes of what homeschooling families look like.
Yeah.
So, then we started thinking about that. There are a lot of families in our circle in Kentucky that homeschooled. We are part of the seminary community. And so I know that you brought me on for the private school aspect, but actually I homeschooled Ethan the first year.
Right.
So in Kentucky, we lived in an apartment complex with a lot of the other families, and there was even a playground there, so we would have recess. We did a homeschool co-op, so there was a lot of support. And then it was middle of August when John got the job at the local university, and we moved out here around the time when schools were starting up.
Okay.
And so, my son is starting kindergarten. I didn't want to just throw him into public school in this new city. I didn't know anything about it. And so we had decided, okay, for the first year, we're going to homeschool. And we used a curriculum from a school back in Kentucky that did classical education. And so I bought that, homeschooled for the first year. That first year was pretty rough for me. I was actually pregnant with my third. I had a really difficult pregnancy, a lot of problems with thyroid and all this other stuff. And then my baby was born. So then I have a newborn I'm trying to homeschool, and a
Yeah.
toddler who's in his teachable twos, I
Yeah.
like to call it.
That's a good way of
Yeah.
putting
So it was just really hard. I tell people it's kind of traumatic.
it. Yeah.
I tried to do the best I could, but it was hard. And so for first grade, we looked into other options.
Okay.
That whole first year, my oldest, he was already pretty advanced. He was reading by the age of 3.5.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
really smart. He was
Wow.
doing independent study in kindergarten. I'd give
Yeah.
him a worksheet and say, read this and do it. But it was hard because he wanted to play outside. And so the
Yeah.
worksheet took him an hour to do, even though it probably would have taken 5 minutes if he just would sit down and do
Right.
it. It was hard. And also, my 2-year-old at the time, I felt like he really needed more attention from me.
Okay.
And so part of the reason sending my oldest was so I can spend more time with him.
Yeah.
So we looked into other options. We made an appointment and met with the principal of the local public school. We were really impressed. We visited the first grade class, and they were doing things that he was doing even before kindergarten. And I thought, he's going to be bored. And
Yeah.
I don't know. And then we looked into the public charter school, where you do hybrid homeschool and attending classes. And there were just things like there was no playground for him to play in. There were a lot of combined classes. And
Okay.
so I wasn't that impressed either, but it seemed like a good option considering we didn't want to do private school, honestly, because
Okay.
it's so expensive. So we put him on a wait list for the public charter school, and it was getting down to weeks before school started. And we thought we need to make a decision. Let's tour the private school. We knew other families from the university that sent their kids there. We heard a lot of good things. So we made an appointment, did a tour, and just fell in love with it. I mean, great education, Christ-centered academics. The principal's awesome. There was one thing about we were talking about math, and the principal said, math is consistent. It's 1 + 1 is always going to be 2, just like God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that just blew my mind that they, just
Combine
those thoughts together and make everything Christ-centered. And from the moment we walked in, the principal, remembered our names, and then remembered the siblings' names, and they don't even go to the school, and everyone's just so friendly. It was that really drew us in. The first bill we got, I mean, it's sticker shock,
Right.
but I mean, once you start paying it, it's like you get used to it.
It's another bill.
Yeah, and I really wanted to think of it as an investment into their education. So yeah. So we explored a lot of different things. We even homeschooled the first year, and now we're private.
Yeah. Well, that's quite the journey.
Yeah.
And like how, like checking out different schools and trying different things. And like you said, it's like another dynamic was the reality of having a 2-year-old at home too. And you're like, okay, I can't give my full attention to my 5-year-old, or almost 6-year-old as he's continuing to need schooling, and my toddler, and pregnant with another one.
I don't know how homeschooling families do it. It's really rough to juggle all that.
Yeah. And I think that goes to show that like that's why there's different schooling options available, but not everyone should be homeschooling or can homeschool, and not everyone could do private school. It's like people, depending on your family dynamic or even personalities, like all those things are different factors in what the best schooling option could be for your kids. So that's cool. And I know that you had mentioned to me that you guys are thinking about a different schooling option in the future. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we've already been talking about sending our kids to the local public school for high school. Our oldest is in 7th grade, so he has 2 more years. Our oldest already knows he's the guinea pig. He even says that to people. Because if he does end up going to the public school, he's going to have had homeschooling, private and public. So finances are a lot of the reason we're considering other options, especially now that we have 3 in private. I got this part-time job right when my youngest was starting kindergarten. So it was just such a blessing, because I don't know if we could have afforded it without it.
Right.
So before that, so I went to law school. I worked for a couple years, but then right when I became a mom, I became a stay-at-home mom. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 11 years.
Wow.
Until my oldest went to kindergarten, which
Wow.
was our plan the whole time. I really want to be home with them.
That's amazing.
So finances are a big reason. It just, the tuition gets more and more expensive as they get older. But that's not the only factor. We also live in a district where there's a reputable public high school that people rave about. And so if it wasn't a good school, we may not have considered it. So right now I'm already kind of preparing my son mentally, my oldest. My kids aren't very good with change. And so when I talk to him, he's a little bit emotional about it, because they do love their school. But yeah, I've already talked to him about it. And I gave him the option, actually. Do you want to be homeschooled again or go to public school? And he chose public. So.
He's all, no homeschool, Mom.
Which is funny because even during private school, he said, I want to be homeschooled. I'm like, do you not remember the hard year we had?
Yeah.
But, maybe he just remembers the good times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that's kind of cool that you like brought him into that, just like talking through that decision too.
Yeah, he'll be a teenager. Not that I'm going to do whatever he says,
right.
But I just wanted to take into consideration what he might want. So,
yeah, that's really cool. And I mean, I'm the oldest too, so I can relate to that feeling of like, okay, I'm the guinea pig of like trying these new things out. But that's cool that he like has like a good attitude about it seems.
Well, I'm mentally preparing him now.
Yeah, he has a couple years.
Yeah, so hopefully in a couple years he will be ready.
So I know right now, like you said, he has a couple years to mentally prepare for that. Maybe even with your other two, and you kind of talked about this, I guess, even with like finances, things like that, but I don't know if you have anything to add to this question. When or why would you ever reconsider a different type of schooling option for your kids? Or would you not reconsider? Like, would there be a reason that you wouldn't?
Yeah, like I said, we are already considering
another
option for high school. I would also say, I know some families who homeschool because there's been bullying situations with their kids, so they've pulled them out of school, whether it's private or public. That happens. And so maybe if there are things like that, or I don't know, there could be other social issues, or so we're open. We always say, we'll take it year by year. With homeschooling, we'll take it semester by semester. I think we're open. We're not fully committed to one thing for their entire school education until college.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I'm a young mom. Like my oldest is in kindergarten. So, and then I have two that are still behind that. And so talking to other young moms who are still having like preschool age toddler, and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do for schooling. Even today I was talking to a friend and she's like, I have my daughter in preschool now and we're trying to figure out what to do for kinder. But I think that's such a great reminder of like, take it 1 year at a time. You don't have to like be like, okay, K through 12, this is what we're doing, being locked into that. And even for us, like right now, both of my sons are in public kinder and preschool. And I don't know if that's like what we'll stick to forever. Like right now, we're thinking that that's a good option for what they need and what we want for them. But that, kind of what you were saying, it's like taking it a year at a time and kind of reevaluating, like, is this still the best option for our kids, for our family in this season, whatever it may be. So
I was thinking even for high school, what if he goes in 9th grade and it's terrible? We might just go back to the private school. We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great too.
But it's funny because even a few years ago, or I guess when they started, we thought, okay, I guess we're committing all the way until college that they're staying here. But, things change. So
it's kind of interesting in you saying that. And I didn't think about that until this conversation. But even for myself personally, so I went to private school like my whole life. I started my freshman year at a new like private high school. I hadn't gone to that school previously. And I like hated my first year. I was like, there's so much drama and I don't want to do this. And I had a lot of friends from my church that did independent study. So my sophomore year, I was like, I want to be homeschooled. I want to do independent study. So I did that, kind of like a part like charter school program. Like I took some classes. And then I hated that because I felt like I had no socialization. So then we like went back to the drawing board. And I appreciate that my parents were like, okay, like, do you want to stick this out or do you want to go back? So I ended up going back to my private school and then I was fine. Like
the one that you didn't like initially. Okay. Yeah.
But by my junior year, I think I had grown up, I don't know, a little bit more. Some of the drama from freshman year had like kind of like settled.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, taking it 1 year at a time, I think is like so important for your kids. So.
I mean, we talked about it and we thought, okay, what if that first year is really hard? My husband thinks, well, I think he should stick it out a little bit longer, maybe another year and see, because that could happen. You have a bad first year experience and then it gets a whole lot better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Yeah. That's good. The next question I have for you is what for you and John, like what for you and your husband is most important about your child's education and learning experience, or children's?
Yeah. Well, we do want them to get a good education that will prepare them for college and beyond. I feel like I should say now we're Asian. So there's that stereotype of, tiger mom and everything. I don't think I'm like that.
I don't think you are.
Yeah, non-stereotypically, my parents actually weren't even really like that either.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, we want them to have a good education, but we're not super strict. But also because we see their potential, they're smart kids, so we don't want them to waste what God has given them. But we also care very deeply about their character and being taught in school the same values that we have. And so when I thought about sending them to public school, I sort of had this fear of, I have to reteach all the things that they're learning in school and, issues like how did the world begin, or even sexual ethics or things like that. But going to a Christian school that we believe in, I feel like we're coming alongside them, just like with church, where they're being taught the things we want them to be taught in church, and we're coming alongside. And I feel the same way with school.
Yeah.
There was an incident when my son was second grade. He had done something that hurt one of his classmates, hurt his feelings. And his teacher handled it so perfectly, just talking about, forgiveness and, not sinning against your friend. And then they reconciled and said, now it's past. And I mean, just handled it all.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't have to do anything. In fact, when I brought it up.
Thank you.
Yeah. When I brought it up, my son said, we already handled it. We reconciled. So like, okay, but we can still talk about it.
You're like, I'm still your mom. So.
Yeah. But things like that. I'm so thankful that we have the same values and they care about them. They get prayed for daily by teachers and so I just education and then Christ-centered is important.
Yeah, that's super cool. And yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And like I said, it's like even for us, like taking it a year at a time, having a school that lines up with your same even moral ethics or things that you're, trying to teach your children within your own home. That is definitely helpful, especially in our day and age where a lot of the culture is, for you and I, it's like we hold to like a Christian, moral viewpoint and have Christian faith. And so wanting to instill those things into our children where culture is like very counter to a lot of that can be difficult. So that's a great point, like being a part of an education system that's helping come alongside you in that. Like,
like I mentioned helpful. About even the math example. I'm like, how do you bring God into math? Well, that was just great. They also say their school rules are based on 2 commandments: love God and love others. Yeah. And so that aligns, why should we be kind to your classmates? Because God tells us we should love others. And, I also like that the education there is pretty traditional. You hear a lot of things about Common Core and, things that are confusing sometimes, but they're learning math the way I learned math. So it seems, now when I starting in fourth or fifth grade, I don't understand the math that they're doing, but it looks okay. I also like that they're not so electronically focused. Like not every kid has an iPad, not everyone has a Chromebook. They're
Yeah.
still learning cursive writing.
Yeah, that's
And
like a
I love
lost
that.
art. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that they're like traditional like that too.
Yeah. Okay, so this question kind of goes along with something that you said earlier. You said that you got to be a stay-at-home mom for 11 years until your youngest started kinder, which is super cool. So now, with working part-time and having your kids in school, how do you balance mom life and school involvement? And what does your typical day or week look like?
I work part time, which I started when my youngest started kindergarten. It's a flexible job, and so I can actually drop my kids off at school and pick them up from school, which is really important to me. I want to be there for them, when they get out. I'm even able to have lunch with them sometimes because now I have Fridays off, well, sort of off, and I can volunteer in their classrooms when I have the time. I'm big on helping with like class parties, and so I also helped volunteer in my youngest computer class. But then I couldn't do that for my other kids because theirs was in the morning. So it's just, if it doesn't conflict with my work schedule and I'm available, then I can help. So yeah, I since I homeschooled, I feel this like deeper appreciation for teachers, and not that if you don't homeschool you can't appreciate teachers fully, but it's hard. And so when I'm having a hard time with my kids, maybe not wanting to do their homework and getting a lot of pushback, I think, thank God I only have to help them with their homework, and
Seriously.
I'm not teaching them all day. I want to be the best, supportive parent to my kids' teachers. That just puts things into perspective for me. It's still hard sometimes. I'm like, this is just homework, but yeah. So I try to balance it, working and trying to stay involved. There's also a 100 Mile Club. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I've heard of it, but I'm not like very familiar.
Yeah, it's like a running club where kids sign up and they reach milestones and win prizes. So I'll be helping with that after school since my kids are going to do it anyway. So I'll be there anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And that is perfect that you were able to find a part-time job that, like you said, is flexible with being able to bring your kids to school and pick them up and still be involved for class parties and things like that.
This job is seriously a godsend.
Yeah.
Like I feel like God just put it in my lap.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an organization that I believe in, and
Yeah.
so it's amazing how God works in orchestrating things in our lives because, I do have my law degree, my license, but I actually didn't practice the 7 years I was in Kentucky. It was really hard for me to find a job. So I ended up actually working as an office manager in Kentucky, totally not related to law.
Yeah.
But then the job I'm doing now is an office manager.
Yeah.
And that job in Kentucky helped me get this job. So it's just amazing how we think we know what's best for us, but God, he sees everything and orchestrates it all for our good. So.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's such a great reminder. And I think like for the mom that's listening, that's maybe like, man, I wish I could do something, but I don't think that there's any job that I could do. Like it's like, who knows what God has for you at that point in that season. And, maybe it could even be something that falls in your lap. That's something that I've been thinking through. It hit me a couple days ago. I'm like, in 3 years, all my kids are in school.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got like a head start because my kids are already older. But yeah, that was like a crazy reality where, I'm like, I think I would want to work part-time. And then one of my girlfriends was like, why wouldn't you want to just be home? Like in silence. I'm like, I don't know. I think I'd get bored. But yeah.
You might be homeschooling. So you might be home with them all day. Who knows?
True. That's true. Who knows at that point?
Yeah.
Although, like you said, just doing homework. My son's in kindergarten and just doing homework. I'm like, okay, one day at a time.
I know.
We can do this.
Just trace the letter A. Yeah. I mean, it's not that hard, but
But it is.
And
it is when you're 6 or 5.
yeah, it depends on the personality. I have one kid who's a lot more compliant and another who will fight me in doing homework. But
Yeah. Oh man, that's good. Next question. What is a piece of advice that you would give a mom who's thinking through all the different schooling options for her little one? Because you've been there.
yeah. So my advice is just, I mean, it applies to parenting in general, is don't compare. Don't compare your schooling choice with other moms. Each family is different, and no one option is better or holier or godly, more godly than the other. You have to look at what needs your family has, and even per child. There are godly families who homeschool, go to public school, go to public charter school or private school. You and your spouse need to discuss and come to a decision together. If you're a single parent, find someone, find wise counsel and talk to them. Just in general parenting, please do not compare.
Yeah.
You are different. Your kids are different. And there are families I've met where each kid is doing different schooling.
Yeah.
So the oldest is in public school. The middle is being homeschooled because she was getting bullied. The younger one is private.
Yeah.
So sometimes even within your own family, kids need different things.
Yeah.
So even kids who have special needs, public schools have a lot more resources than private. And so maybe, you want to go that route. So yeah, just don't compare and do what's best for your family.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. I know that that's something that I struggle with just in general in parenting is comparing to other moms, and my journey to motherhood has for sure looked very different than most moms around me. And so that's something that is always like a good reminder for me. And like you said, even with like, if children have any special needs, like public school has a lot of resources. I always thought that I would homeschool my kids or that they'd be in private school. And now my 2 boys are in public school and getting services that they need in this season, for the different things that they need help with. And so things that I couldn't help them with as easily or as good at, like with what they need. So I'm really thankful for that. But
why did you think you would homeschool? Is that a whole nother podcast?
No, I could talk about that. So my background's in education. So I have my bachelor's is in early childhood studies.
Okay.
Which is basically like education, like early childhood. So 0 to 12, or 0 to 8, I think technically.
You're much more qualified than me.
And then I have a master's in education.
Yes.
And so I always thought that I like joked around, maybe someday, Lord willing, my family, like we would love to move overseas. So we don't know what that would look like, but I've joked around saying that maybe I just got a master's to teach my kids in the jungle. So I don't know what our future looks like.
Could be.
But at this point, with like the things that my boys need and the resources that they need, public school has been a great option so far. So that's what we're doing for now. We did throw around the idea of me homeschooling. Now that our kids are adopted, we have the freedom to do whatever we want with education. So yeah, we'll see. Kind of like I said before, like we're taking it a year at a time, to kind of see what education will look like for us. But comparison, that's a great reminder of like not comparing to people around you, but seeking counsel, talking to your spouse, praying through, what's best for your kids and for your family. That's a great reminder. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Okay, so my closing question, and this doesn't have to do with schooling necessarily, unless you want it to, but I always like to ask this question to moms. What is the legacy that you want to leave for your children?
That is such a huge
I know. It's a doozy, but that's why I like to end with it.
Yeah, it's really a huge,
it's
heavy question.
It is. Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah. I really need to think about that.
Yeah.
What do I want to be remembered by my children. And so I decided, like thinking about what I do and my values and everything, I really want them to know that they're deeply loved by me. The decisions and sacrifice that I've made, despite my failures and wrong choices, that they're all motivated by love for them. And I want them to know ultimately, and more importantly, that they are deeply loved by God, and that my love for them is only possible because of God's love for me. So just that idea of being, or not just idea, but the truth that they're deeply loved. I feel like if they can come to understand how deeply loved they are, that'll drive them to love others, obey God, be humble, compassionate, kind, and be the kind of person that God wants them to be. So, I mean, I was thinking, like the cookie cutter answer, like I want them to know, which is, awesome. But like, what do I want them to know? So love.
I love that. Thanks for taking the time to think, like, what is it that I want to leave for my children and for them to remember me by.
I don't know if it's morbid, but I thought about, what if it's my funeral? And like, they're thinking about their mom.
What do I want them to say?
I want them to know that they are deeply loved.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. I love that. Well, thanks so much for letting me interview you and for being on Mommispace. And
thanks for inviting me. I was really honored that you even thought of me.
No, I think you had really valuable things to share. So I'm excited to share this with other moms. So thanks.
I hope it's helpful.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check out all of the goodness from today's episode on the show notes and share this with a friend if it impacted you in any way. You can also leave a review on iTunes so other mamas can join in the movement of loving the woman inside the mother. Join our online Mommispace community every day by following us on Instagram at Mommispace, that's MOMMI space, where you can interact with me, some of our past guests, ask simple or hard questions, and give your valuable input on how to make Mommispace an even more beautiful, safe place for mamas all over the world. All my love to you, mama. You are enough.